When I teach the precepts, you have to regularly remind students that the precepts are formless, that they're not some new mental construct that we use to judge the relevance of our lived experience, that there's something we use to step into our lived experience in a way with skill. But of course, they're always implicit in the moment. If you take, the precept, for instance, don't discuss the faults of others. Tough precept. Yeah. It's actually reflective and reflexive. Right? We feel compelled somehow, in some occasions, to correct others in an effort to extricate ourselves from association with their perceived errors. Right? But in doing that, we actually wind up having their perceived errors cling to us even harder. Right? So, but what kind of if you look at it, what kind of person calls another human being defiled? Right? Or to put it more plainly, what kind of person calls another person a jerk? And all of a sudden it crops right in, and you see how futile it is to do that. And yet we keep thinking that if we're able to label it even more plainly, one last time, make that one last fine distinction, that finally everything will come into sharp relief conceptually, and we'll have solved the problem. And we can somehow escape it through the very trap door that got us into the conundrum in the first place. So we keep proceeding over and over again along the same lines, this continuous loop. There's a case in the Shōyōroku, it's the 57th case. And the preface to the assembly points somewhat to this conundrum we're talking about. It says, fiddling with shadows, toiling with forms. It's not understood that forms are the basis for shadows. Raising the voice to quiet an echo, it's not known that the voice is the root of the echo. You don't ride on an ox to look for an ox. This is using a wedge to remove a wedge. How can you avoid this error? How indeed? Yeah? If the root is perceived conceptual division, then how will more division ever get to the truth? Why is it so hard to let go? Why is it so hard? Why do we have to keep saying, well, no, I know if I turn this Rubik's Cube one more time, it'll all come into sharp focus, and then I can put it down. So we keep turning over and over again, and the colors keep getting more and more scrambled. Yeah? How do we drop all of that and just embody wisdom? That brings us to the case. Genyo is not one thing. Attention. Venerable Genyo asked Jōshū, when there's not one thing, what then? Jōshū replied, throw it away. Throw it away. Genyo said, with not one thing, what is there to throw away? Jōshū remarked, and carry it off. And carry it off. So Genyo asks, when there's not one thing, what then? So he's sitting here with some sort of, precision, trying to envision at some point when he'll get down to the conceptual root, when he'll get down to the basis, and he'll be able to cut through it, and there's nothing left. But it's just an idea of nothing being left. When there's no object to point to, no clear fault to name, no self to name it, no error, in essence, to put to right, what then? Jōshū looks at him and says, throw it away. Throw it away. But Genyo doesn't, because he can't, because he's riding an ox to try to find an ox. Yeah? Well, I say he can't, but maybe it's more accurate to say he won't. He just can't let it go. This line of interrogation, this way of trying to put things together and to make them make sense somehow. So he sits and says, with not one thing, What is there to throw away? You just can't escape this. He's raising the voice to quiet the echo. Yeah? He's already turned not one thing into something. Something to hold, something to stand on, something to understand, some absolute basis of, not of reality, but of the idea of reality. He's making mental sandcastles and then trying to wonder why he can't go open the door and go walk in and live in them. Yeah? And because he refuses to let that go, Jōshū points to the only thing that's possible in that situation. Just then carry it off. Yeah? You're left no differently than when you started. It's not because it's a goal of some kind, but because Genyo just won't release it. If you won't let go, then you have no option but to take it with you. Carry your understanding, carry your idea of emptiness, carry your not one thing, and see what happens. In a way, that's exactly how discussing the faults of others work. We say we're clarifying, we say we're correcting, we say we're naming what's wrong, but what we're really doing is trying to put a distance between ourselves and what we fear being associated with. When that doesn't work, we try again. We refine the language. We make the label sharper, more accurate, more justified, one last time. Whatever releases us, because the root is still a conceptual idea of separateness. The root is still division. Jōshū says the only way to win that game is to not play it. Let it go. And when you do let it go, you don't have to explain emptiness. You don't have to explain interdependence. You don't even have to explain enlightenment. It manifests right there before you. The hope is that the strategy will eventually exhaust itself by you just throwing yourselves wholeheartedly into it. But if you're going to do that, just do it. Do it until you yourself die trying. But just make that happen sooner rather than later, because there's a world that needs you to engage. There's a world that needs us to get out of our ivory tower, out of our mind games, and into the realistic notions of what needs to be done. There's a lot of work at hand. Yeah? There's an appreciatory verse, as there is for every case in Shōyōroku. Be inattentive to careful moves, and you'll lose to the opponent. Learn for yourself it's a shame to be surrounded due to carelessness. The game ended. An axe handle at the waist is rotted, washing a clean bumpkin, sporting with hermits. Case references, the appreciatory verse references a very old story of a woodcutter who happened upon two immortals playing a game of Go. Yeah? He was so captivated by the game, so focused on the correctness of the moves and the skill of the play, right? So trying to work this thing out on the board, that he didn't notice the time itself was passing. And when the game finally ended and he reached for his axe to go back to work, he found that the wooden handle had rotted away to dust. That's the cost of our obsession with these conundrums, with this idea of conceptual correctness, with this idea of ideation. It doesn't always have to take the form of rumination over the simple idol of the self, past harms, past hurts, although we often do that. Sometimes it can look like a very engaging conversation about Dogen. Sometimes it can take the form of sitting and having a teishō about a kōan. Sometimes it's time just to put it down. So that axe handle is organic. It's not getting any stronger by our indecision. Yeah? Spend our lives watching the game of who is right is who is wrong, labeling this person a saint and this person a sinner, and we think we're making progress. But while we're busy refining our labels and trying to play Go in our mind, the very tool we're given to work with, this very life, is being squandered. It's totally turning to dust. We lose our life to the careful move of our judgments, of our labels, of our ideas, even our idea of enlightenment. And then washed clean, not by purity, not by correctness, but by exhaustion, the bumpkin just sits there playing with hermits. Recognize there's nothing left to throw away, nothing left to carry, and when you do that, you'll see the very thing that requires your attention right in front of you.